Welcome to Creating a Vision Across the Years in Education, where we're going to talk about the power of charting a life course in planning for a lifetime. This 1-hour webinar, during this time, I'm going to share a deeper understanding of the power of charting a life course for school teams, families, and students as they identify, plan, and create their vision for the life they want to live at any age. I'm going to share information about why charting a life course is so important in school, experiences of students whose teams and families introduced or supported the use of these tools, with hopes that you will see options for how you might try to use them in your work. The Ohio team, who's here to support you as you begin to wonder about how to use these and where to use these tools, includes Tracy Mans, who's at the Niswonger Center, and this is a University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disability. Her role is to support and coordinate all things that have to do with the Family Resource Center or the Family Resource Network of Ohio. She's the project manager. There's also Erica Young, who works with Tracy at the Family Resource Network of Ohio, and she's the project manager coordinator. Both of them are available if you have any questions or want to learn more about how Family Resource Network of Ohio can support you. In addition, on the team, we have Barb Seferis. Barb is a consultant to the Niswonger Center, where Tracy and Erica are. She's an Ohio ambassador for Charting the Life course, and she's a Charting the Life course ambassador coach, and is a member of the National Charting the Life Course Nexus team at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. And of course, myself, Celia Schlomer, and I sit in the Southwest Ohio at Cincinnati Children's Hospital at the University of Cincinnati Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. I, too, am a Charting the Life course ambassador in Ohio and a Charting the Life course ambassador coach with UMKC. I am certified in utilizing both as a foundations presenter, and I'm certified as an life course in action facilitator. Charting the Life course trainings are provided through the Family Resource Network of Ohio. And if you go to that website, you'll find lots of different opportunities to increase your knowledge of charting the life course, but also about all kinds of things that are happening in Ohio. This funding for this opportunity is provided in Ohio, both by the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities and the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. So why are we here now, supporting the goals of special education within the framework of charting the life course? So often in charting the life course, we encourage those involved to know their why. So I want to start there. Why are we sharing this information with you? Why are we encouraging you to start with students and support them and their families differently? Why in education and why now in Ohio? Ultimately, our vision is connected work that first and foremost supports a person's self-determination and self-advocacy. So that person, in the context of their family, understanding their vision, while holding a vision as a system of not only supporting families across a lifespan, so they're able to maximize their capacity to support their student from early in education into and throughout adulthood, but also to ensure support for those professionals that work with students to have the capacity and tools to provide their students with a person-centered vision and person-centered supports and person-centered planning. We're all in this together. The framework and tools work to empower people with disabilities. They help support families, and they're there to assist professionals and support team members in their roles. So if you're a student or a family member who wants to hold rich conversations with your family with your friends, or with the other professionals that support your child, your student. If you are a student or a family member who wants to help others talk about life goals and make plans or problem solve anytime, preschool all the way into graduation. If you're a student or a family member who wants to think about what's needed and what needs to be done now and in the future to help someone be successful and more self-determined, then these tools and this framework is a great place to start. If you're an educational professional who wants to think about these tools and framework, then learning more about Charting the Life course and the tools and experiences of those here in Ohio and across the US and how they're using them, it's a great way to start. You can encourage rich conversations about what they need to be successful and self-determined from preschool through graduation. You can build on your own understanding of their needs and their family's needs. And you can determine from preschool through graduation and beyond, helping them think about choices, decisions, and experiences that you're making now and how it can help them in the future. You see in front of you the homepage of the Charting the Life course Nexus. Charting the Life course is a framework based on 8 principles, some of which I'm going to talk about throughout this webinar. It was created to help individuals and families of all abilities and all ages develop a vision for a good life. Help them think about what they need to know and do. Identify how to find supports or develop new ones that right now don't even exist, but ultimately discover what it takes to live the life they want to live. I encourage you in your journey to learn more about how you can use the framework and tools in your role by visiting the Charting the Life Course Nexus website at lifecoursetools.com and learn more about the principles and the tools. Learn more about the National Community of Practice supporting families and the ways Charting the Life course has impacted the lives of individuals and disabilities across the lifespan. There's so much information there, lots of videos, lots of conversations and information from the Nexus itself on where this began and why. And they are empowering, and they will help you find your own why to start this work or to continue the work you've done in new and different ways. In addition, I encourage you to go to the Family Resource Network of Ohio to learn more about the opportunities for learning and connection with others here in Ohio using Charting the Life course. To view the videos there and learn more and hear local stories of how families and people with lived experience have used it to develop supports, problem solve, and discover what they want. There's lots of opportunities on our events calendar where you can attend specific opportunities and events like our community of practice for educators, our ambassador check-ins to hear what your fellow educators are doing and ways they've used the framework and tools. There's live trainings for use in education and much more. This space is a great tool for you to take an opportunity to share Charting the Life course and that what you're doing with it with those you support and their families, in addition to using it as a tool to educate others in your district about this work and the power of these tools for students. The intention of Charting the Life course is to empower individuals and their families to develop a vision for a good life. It's important to everyone to have a vision for a good life, a quality life, with an understanding of how prior and current stages and experiences can impact their future. The best gift that can be given to a child is optimism and high expectations. And for those of us who support them across their life, to offer encouragement, support, and experiences to prepare them for the road ahead. And that vision is encouraged to be across a person's lifespan, in addition to being person-centered, based and built on what the person wants their life to look like. It encourages their vision of their wants, their hopes, their dreams. It encourages us to consider and encourage their choices. It encourages us to have expectations, but more importantly, to increase their expectations of themselves, and encourages growth. But we also need to consider what's not wanted. And the Charting the Life Course framework also emphasizes to all that work and engage with it that this is equally important and sometimes more informative to know and hear, or help folks identify or work with them to support how to articulate what they don't want. So experiences and events don't push them in the wrong direction, away from what they want in their future. This path or trajectory that we are all on as we move through life is filled with known and unexpected experiences. Families begin with a sense of knowing what kind of things might be present in each life stage. We dream about it, we identify it, we plan for it. But as life happens, for example, getting a diagnosis, we learn more possibilities. And each of these can help to predict and plan for what's next and keeps us on track. And it's that plan that gives us resiliency. It's that understanding of knowing what we need to know for the next step on the trajectory that empowers us to work and do what's in front of us to ensure that our child has the life that we want for them. And reliance on that opportunity and that time in school to have access to experts like educators is imperative in that process. So you'll see on this trajectory simple things that we always plan to do in our trajectory, like belonging to mom and toddler groups or play dates and preschool. But you'll also see underneath those things like what happens after getting the diagnosis. If we get it early enough, we're going to be part of early intervention. However, if we don't find out till later, we're going to have to consider and learn about those groups we can connect to outside of early intervention or beyond early intervention in order to get back on track of knowing what we need to know. There's transition planning that happens at 14, but there's so many dots on that trajectory between the beginning of school age and our IEP and then that transition planning. So what are those, and how can I work with my school team to develop those in a way that really helps us moving towards our vision? And the tool that we use to do this is the trajectory. You're familiar with both the exploring and the planning trajectory. I just want to remind you where to find those on the Charting the Life Course website. If you go to lifecoursetools.com, to the Charting the Life Course Nexus website, and you go to the tab labeled Life Course Library and click on it, you'll see a number of choices, one of which is Foundation Tools. So go ahead and click on that, and there'll be a great video that begins you thinking in the ways of Charting the Life Course and understanding the why of how the tools developed and that how the framework developed. In addition, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of that page, you'll find person-centered as a choice or family-centered as a choice. And you can click on either of those to begin to see the trajectory written in many different voices. So the tool of the trajectory is something that we access in, pardon me, for a number of different reasons. And I want to share with you a few family stories of how they've used that tool to support themselves in this process, to bring their wants and desires forward, so that the professionals that they're working with or the family members that they're sharing it with better understand the family's journey and what they have in their vision for their future. So what does this look like? This looks like a young mom with some really graphic talent to create a tool to help keep her vision forward. This does not look like a typical trajectory, but what this mom did was she took her early intervention plan from part C of IDEA, and she began to look at the goals, some met and some not met. And she tried to place them into her trajectory, those that were not met, as something that she still wanted to see in her child's future. And as she began to think about that big meeting where they talk about the goals or whether or not we're going to proceed with supports and services and what that might look like in the form of her first IEP, she didn't want those things that had not been met to get lost. So she put it in the box or in this document to express those concerns to her school team. She wanted to make sure they stayed in sight as she transferred from Part C to Part B supports. For her, this transition and the idea of them getting lost was really scary. And after she had been exposed to the tools and to the framework, she really had a picture of how the therapeutic goals from early intervention needed to be connected to kindergarten readiness and the early learning development standards that would be used to write his first IEP. And so she adapted her I want box into a clear visual for her new team. This was very powerful, and lucky for her, the exposure early to Charting the Life course gave her a framework to think about this, to consider what happens when we write this next document, to even have a vision for what she didn't want, which was to lose those goals that were already there and marked. And then the opportunity of how to express them to her school team in a concise manner and in a team approach. And this is what she developed to do that. But it's not always that complicated and that intense or detailed. Sometimes it's really simple. And so when you're a mom of a kiddo that is in very early school age, and you're talking about what you don't want, and we're encouraging that conversation of looking at that, she began to express a need for a better morning routine. They had a very complicated morning routine and home to school transition, and it was impacting everyone in the family. So the trajectory is really short. It was those hours between 7 or 7:30 and 8:45 when she dropped her child off at school. She looked very closely at what her ultimate goals were of interdependence and independence and wanting to build self-determination. And she looked at those spaces that they were struggling in terms of just getting out the door. Life was complicated. There was a lot of resistance to participate in their own routine. It was impacting mom. It was impacting the siblings. But this simple conversation about what do you want and what do you not want helped mom formulate a conversation with school to ask for help, to see how it tied into goals, and to have collaboration between home and school impact how this routine was mapped out for everyone on the team. So they identified places to feel success so that the whole morning didn't feel like it was a fight every step of the way. You can see in the way she wrote the trajectory that she wanted his participation. She wanted to build that self-determination and wanted to not have mom be the primary and the person who always had to build her day around doing everything. And in her exasperation, she was relying on siblings a lot, and she didn't want them to be in that space either. But in that space of expressing what she wanted and what she didn't want, she was able to work with the team and their expertise around behavior, around building routines, and how to build that transition in a positive way that helped the child move from one space to the next. And it changed how the team worked together, and it helped them see the power of collaboration. In addition, another way to see how this can be mapped out is in this particular case, where you see the vision of a student and a family who wanted to set expectations into the future and then backwards plan as to what we need to do now to ensure that. The driving force of this vision, prior to it being this detailed, was the idea of how are we going to move him from this building to the next and have him be ready in its simplest of terms. But it helped them to identify as a family what ready looked like and how not being ready might impact how he moved forward in that next transition. And parents really felt like, if you look at the don't want box first, simple things like leaving third grade in pull-ups and not having potty training under control, that would impact who and how he was presented into his fourth grade in the new building. Behavior and communication needs that would continue to impact his inclusion as he moved into the heavier years where academics became more and more important. In addition, to have him not participating in the general education classroom in a way that created those meaningful relationships that we all take throughout life. And then ultimately not graduating with the skills that he wants. And so when they were looking at those things, they went back to what does this mean we want then? And they were able to identify increased collaboration between home and school to finalize that toilet training, to increase appropriate communication, to ensure participation in the general ed classroom, decreasing removal and increasing my ability to communicate what I want or need and be seen as someone who is valued and needed in that community in the general ed classroom because I add something and because my presence is important. And then collaboration between school and home to support those connections to kids in my classroom and make those connections to kids in my neighborhood so that I ultimately can be growing relationships in a way that I carry them into the next space while and they're meaningful and strong, so I have the support I need if I end up in a new classroom with different friends, or maybe friends that I knew on the bus, or maybe friends that I met in the neighborhood, but asking for schools' collaboration and help in recognizing and building those connections before moving so they could ultimately support him as he moved. So it just created a futuristic lens of where they were trying to be short term of that transition into the next building after third grade and what that really needed to look like. And it was a rich conversation that helped them talk about where in day-to-day efforts in our IEP and other spaces, we could identify ways to build skills and strengths to have that vision come to fruition. It can also be used to find a student's voice. And this trajectory was done by a young man who was on the autism spectrum, but was twice exceptional. There was a lot of work on ability and a lot of focus on academics, but there were a lot of things that he wanted to let the team know as they had conversations about what skills he might need moving forward. And he did it through the form of a trajectory. His hopes and dreams that were listed were lofty. It was clear he wanted to go to college, but it was also clear that his college choices took him out of town and not living at home. That was a big game changer in how the team talked about and supported his ideas of going to college. Mom wasn't necessarily on board. She saw the possibility, but saw the gaps. And she wanted to really work with the team to say, what do we need to do to ensure his ability to do this? They weren't, what we love about the trajectory as we worked with them is they were clear and they were in alignment with his typical peers. But it began conversations with the school team about what it would mean to be living away from home on a college campus, managing his own day-to-day decisions. And that refocused them on skill development in all 6 of the Charting a Life Course domains, which we'll get into, that helped refocus the team. And they talked about all the different spaces that would impact his life, like daily life and employment, or health and safety, or advocacy, and how he needed skills in each one of those areas to make these dreams even a possibility. But I love that his don't want box was simple, and that too influenced the conversation. He wanted to not be overweight, which really was, to me, a statement of he wanted to be in charge and control of his own health. He also didn't want to be alone, because being away from home meant I needed to create a new support system. And he didn't want his anxiety to get the best of him because of the new pressures or the new concerns and the new environment in a college campus. So building those skills were going to be important to the team too. We can also see it in this trajectory that expresses a student's desire and vision for adulthood. When we move through challenges and use the trajectory as a way of mapping a way forward, it really can be insightful. And this trajectory was actually developed with a family who the mom is now a Charting a Life Course ambassador. And his limited expressive language skills and his reentry to COVID, reentry to school after COVID really brought to light some new challenges. And we had seen skills across all domains had changed, and that mom was having a hard time opening herself up to visioning for his future because of the regression. But when we brought out his most recent trajectory that he had developed prior to COVID and reflected on it, it reminded her of her why. Things like his love for travel or just being with family, his strong desire to be included and to participate in things like church and being in his favorite spaces, like We Rock the Spectrum with his friends, were things that she had lost sight of as being a priority because of the other things that were going on. More important, she was reminded of the things he and his family did not want. And she knew that if she and the school team didn't get busy, those things were going to be more of a possibility. Her son's trajectory has become their true north again. It has kept them focused when planning for things like ESY, when making decisions about mental health and medical decisions. It's kept them focused when considering least restrictive environment or alternative settings, and has continued to guide their conversations as he turned 18 and allowed them to plan for his final years of transition out of school. It's created a reminder of the peace that she wants in the moments where peace isn't necessarily the driving force. It reminds her of his voice in the room and her desire to tap into those in everything they plan and in everything they do. And ultimately, it gives her hope that they're in the right direction and that she's communicating with the school team and the medical team as they make decisions, driving it from the perspective of this trajectory. But again, as we look at developing a vision and driving it or mapping it, and these conversations that we want to have, we want to keep in touch with our why. We want to develop a vision-driven future. Charting the Life course encourages students at any age, their families, and the teams that support them to think about and have rich and meaningful conversations about how to encourage development of a vision for a life and create opportunities to have the life experiences to get there. I can say I want to go to college, but if we're not working on building skills for those life experiences that will support me when I'm in college, my chances of getting there are less. We want to think about how to grow skills in self-determination at any age, in all aspects of life. We want to think about what the student needs to feel empowered to ask questions. We want the student to feel comfortable to have a voice and maybe even disagree. The skills and information that are needed for the team to grow the students' decision-making skills can be found in the trajectory. And then we can have a vision for how all of us are going to move forward to shift control back to the person that we're building that trajectory for. We're going to see the steps to encourage control for students and build skills around that while supporting them where they want support in order to be successful. This all aligns itself with something that I've talked about throughout since we began today, and that is self-determination. So what is self-determination? In its simplest form, it's the process by which a person controls their life. Children can start learning to be self-determined from birth by having opportunities, making choices, and learning about new places and things. They can build community connections, they can develop skills, and they can learn responsibility. We want to begin this at a very early age. This process of ongoing, rich, person-centered conversations that capture a student's wants, hopes, and dreams, that allow them to be seen and truly included, and aid in the building of connections that lead to true belonging. That's what self-determination is all about. Self-determination should be part of the life course journey from the very beginning. Self-determination is a quality or characteristic of a person similar to good manners or other qualities that parents work to develop in their children. Like other desirable qualities, children can start learning to be self-determined from birth by having opportunities to make choices, learn about new places and things, and build community connections, develop skills, and learn responsibility. And our vision within Charting the Life course is to be able to do this across all domains with support where needed. And supports, they'll be different in each domain. However, we will grow all our skills across time. We may not assume an independent role in making choices and decisions in every area, every time. I can tell you personally, I'm confident making most of my decisions at work. However, there are plenty of times that I can and do ask for help or input, because collaboration is a space I enjoy, and I learn to think differently, more broadly, consider new things when I do it with others. I assume less of a role in my financial security, especially when it comes to planning for retirement. I am luckily married to someone who is a financial planner, and so he understands it more than me. And so I may defer to him. However, I do let him know my wants and my don't wants to guide those conversations and that planning in the broader scope, so that we both end up where we want with the good life that we are imagining for ourselves. I know my weaknesses and I ask for help. Having self-determination, therefore, does not mean that we do it alone. It does not mean we are independent. We want to be able to do this with others that we care about and bounce ideas off of them to enrich our thinking. But we also know that we're not going to do this without making mistakes. And ultimately, we're not going to do it without changing our mind here or there. And those are all important learning experiences. But what we do know ultimately is that all of the Charting Life Course domains are they are something that they're integrated. They impact each other. They're connected. And this is true across all of the lifespan. And so with this chaos of arrows, you have a visual that says, at any point in time, I can be thinking about where I want to live and in what community. In our younger years, we may be thinking about it as a family. I want to live closer to a children's hospital. I want to consider a move where we have a different school opportunity. But we might see it in employment too, which seems kind of silly. But when we think about employment in those younger years, it might be that we are really going to think more seriously about how we engage them in a level of expectation. I may not be able to, just by stature alone, empty the dishwasher, but I can have a certain role within that process that makes me realize that I contribute and that my contribution is important, and that me offering something to the communities in which I live is important to my belonging. And at the same time, I can do something that I'm asked to do. And I can show a skill and build that skill. So we're hearing all those domains, that community domain, that social domain, that employment domain. And we're thinking about it across the lifespan. Because as we think across the lifespan, we have to think about the impact of envisioning that future, those domains. It's important for us as we grow to understand how we like to spend our time and share it with others. It's important to know what you need in your home or in your community to live your good life and to share that with others. It's important to know and share how you best stay safe and understand who can help you be safe. And it's important to know and share with others who cares about you, and as important, who do you care for and how do you help them? So in each way, we're developing skills that are of that broader whole child approach. It's important as we grow to know and share with others things that we like and that we find fun and that we want to do with our friends. It's important to know about our disability and what needs we might have because of that, what we might want to share with our friends when they ask questions, so that we can feel empowered to share it, understand it, and help them know and understand us. It's important to share and know the laws and rules that affect us so that we can express ourselves in the context of those and know when to stand up for ourselves, and how to get involved in our community and have a sense of purpose. You can turn off the recording. So the next tool that I want to share with you and go a little deeper with is the Charting the Life Course Experience Assigned Question Booklet. And in addition to that will be the quick guides in the Life Experiences series. And what this tool was developed to do was to encourage the experiences that help you think about your future, that help you prepare for life in the future. Each page of this guide gives you questions to ask, things to consider, things to discuss in each life stage, and can be used by students and individuals, family members, caregivers, and other supporters to think about how they can encourage and support this to develop goals, both informal and formal goals. and in all ways encourage possibility for the student to begin to develop a self-determined life that has a vision for a future that they want, that they choose. As I said, this does this in offering it across the lifespan. So it helps us anticipate what's going to happen next in life, anticipate that trajectory, and it does it by domain, talks about multiple settings, including the community, education, and within their own self-determined spaces. It also talks about it in each life stage, so beginning with early childhood, moving through school age, thinking about transition to adulthood, considering life as an adult, and moving into aging as an adult. You can find this tool if you go to the Charting the Life Course Nexus website at lifecoursetools.com. Go to the tab identified as Life Course Library and move on to the tab and double click on Exploring the Life Stages. These quick guides and the experiences and questions booklet highlight and help you to think about how the life experiences of a student may have what highlight each stage and how to prepare them for being ready for the next stage. And eventually, the ultimate goal of being an adult in the community and participating in things you enjoy and love, including employment and community life, and doing this day to day with a vision that includes the things that are important to you and that you are supported in a way that you can do those. It gives families the perspective of higher expectations and creating opportunities and experiences and moving closer to helping them to achieve their goals and dreams. It gives educators an opportunity to think about how to connect the work that you're doing at school with the day-to-day family life and the chosen vision by that family. So it helps us all together work on that good life that we want for that child. The approach of this tool taps into the importance of understanding your why that I had spoken of earlier. It encourages this way of thinking in order to create a purpose, and it helps you describe what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how it supports your vision. I think of it as your conviction. Knowing your conviction is one of the first steps in empowerment and self-determination. So as you look here, you're talking about what you want as part of your day-to-day life. You're imagining employment or volunteering or how you communicate with others. What routines do you need? As it says here, your child's learning and growing in so many ways. And if we're focusing on early childhood and you think about that, how it's carefree and it's filled with playtime, but it also can be purposeful in how we think about the life experiences that you're having at this moment are preparing your child to be ready for school and to be able to participate in a full day of school, and which will then lead to graduation and possible employment. So then it brings it down and helps you think about how communication right now can impact how you enter into school. And are there some things you can build upon? And if we go back to Itara's goal sheet that she offered earlier in that vision that I showed you for the young child moving from early intervention to school age, in those goals were communication goals that were important to her that he hadn't quite gotten there yet. And so if he's not there yet and we're thinking about them across time, how do we need to keep focus? So again, it all ties back. it talks about choices. How are we making choices? Are we growing skills? Are we really valuing the voice of the child as they come in, which is really hard in the day-to-day events of a child at a young age. But knowing that we want to be working on that because it's an acquired skill for parents and teachers too, is going to be really important on this journey. But it really does remind us of why we're here, why we're having these conversations, and helps us identify what those convictions are of what we want in our child's future, in this student's future. You can see it in advocacy and engagement within this book, and just an example of talking about that within early childhood. And it talks about experiences now in getting involved in your community can help prepare your kids, your student, to be a productive citizen. And that's part of being in school. So how am I learning to follow rules at home and in other settings? Are you holding me to that same expectation? Are you helping teach me about how to give back to my community? All those things that help me have a valued role. And I think in the space of disability, add to not just thinking of me as someone who receives from others and is supported from others, but that I have something to offer in a way to my community too. So remember that these quick guides and this experiences and question book can increase and support conversations around and encourage opportunities to make choices, to set goals, to assume responsibility, and to drive one's own life at no matter what age. It can encourage opportunities and conversations to learn about new places and things and build connections in the community that are going to be important, not only for the student, but for the families that support them. It helps them develop skills and it helps them learn responsibility. The quick guides and the questions that it offers help encourage conversations that encourage families to look for experiences that support the student or the child's growth into a self-determined, autonomous, and independent person. And what a great vision to have for your student. So when might professionals or families utilize these quick guides? When you're stuck. It's a great place if families are feeling stuck to just print it off and share it with them in a meeting and say, this may help you think a little bit differently or a little bit more. It can help when you're in uncharted territory and things are new and you're trying to look for new ideas. It can help when you just need a guide from the side or when you want to plant a seed. Families planting seeds with the school team, schools planting seeds within the family team, or the student trying to tell you what they want. When you want to transform the way of thinking and look at something brand new. When you want to brainstorm possibility and get back to really what is possible instead of focusing on what we can't do. When you want to reflect on what might have been missed and recognize or identify gaps. And when you want to encourage independence, and as importantly, when you want to encourage that interdependence, that connection, that is a way that we all live and we all support each other to get done what we're trying to get done across time in our lives, and those folks in that village that we have to help us do it. So these are all ways that you can encourage or help a family, a student, or a team think about and move forward with the use of a quick guide. I always encourage to look at the one before the stage you're in and after, so you can recognize maybe what was missed, or maybe you recognize what you can move towards into in the future. Another great tool when thinking about life domains across the lifespan is the life domain tool. And as I said earlier, those domains are useful because we all lead whole lives made up of very specific and interconnected and integrated domains. And these life domains help us think about what life experiences we want to have and help us identify the different facets of our desired good life. The Charting the Life Course vision tool creates a way to capture those visions across domains and develop a vision for a whole life by asking families and students direct questions. It asks them conversations about, oh, I want to go back, I'm sorry. Those direct questions are in each domain. And I want to show you real quickly. And asks things like, if you're looking at daily and life employment, what do I think I will do or I want to do during the day in my adult life? And what kind of job or career would I like? Where would I like to live in my adult life? And will I live alone or with someone else? And being familiar with this tool, if you want to go find it, you're going to go to lifecoursetools.com. You're going to go to Life Course Library, double click, choose Foundational Tools down at the bottom of the page, if you recall, double click, and then choose Person-Centered or Family-Centered, and you'll find this tool written in either family or person-centered language. The important thing, I think, to note in this conversation, as you work with this tool with family members or you encourage them to work with this tool, is to expand the questions into a true conversation, because they can be used to help anyone when planning or problem solving or working on a goal, and they can help express that vision for a future. But once you've worked through those questions, or maybe you feel that the family isn't ready for those, you can think of things to say like, what does your best day look like? What would you do? Who would you spend your time with? Where would you like to go? You can expand it into a conversation in social and spirituality by just telling me about your favorite things to do. Who do you do them with? Do you know of places you can do that close to your home? Do you have other friends who like to do that thing? Community living. Where do you like to go? Tell me why you like to go there. Talk to me about where you live now. And what would you add or what would you change? We all are able to have these conversations about ourselves. I encourage you, as you have these conversations, to think about them in terms of yourself too. Because the more we work with these tools with our own vision in mind, the more skill we're going to have on how to support a family or a student to think this way. Again, thinking about your best day and responsibilities at home, and tell me about the family who's part of your life and what they might think to do better to support you. Any way that you can expand that conversation into a deeper, richer conversation. But it gets you started by giving you each of the questions that are on the document about that looking into a future lens in each domain. So I want to share this tool with you, and this vision tool is in support of a young school-aged child. In review, beyond the clear statements that the parent has provided, you can hear a voice of wondering. You can almost hear a voice of worrying and fear of the unknown. You can see it in statements like, here, let me zoom in a little bit. You can see it in statements like, I wonder. You can see it in statements like, it's hard to imagine. You can see it in statements like, it's not an issue now, but I'm not sure how to do this beyond family. Statements like, we need them to learn, and I'm not sure. It is visioning in this way that families can have conversations with those who support them that allow them to fill their buckets with information and connections that will help them feel capable to support their child across a lifespan. So it's not just the simple answer to the questions that will encourage you on how to move forward as an educator, but it's things like seeing where the family is, hearing that tone that's underneath it, and imagining or deepening the conversation around what that might mean. In this particular tool, it's used by a parent who is also works within the service support system in her local county board. She's also Charting the Life Course ambassador. She's able to vision for her daughter from the lens of her own experience in all three of these roles. And as a service support assistant, she's able to share those experiences with the families that she supports, whose students are in school and on that journey too. You can see her empowered voice due to these experiences. She can, she will. She'll be able to live by herself, along with what they're doing to build the supports with a future lens in a language like, this will likely continue with the support of. We will ensure open dialogue. Lifelong medical needs. We will work on talking about feelings. So as parents work with these tools, they become more empowered as the keeper of the vision, which is super helpful and enriches the work we do within school teams. It can also be a great way to vision a self-determined life during transition. And in working with this family, what was amazing, you met her earlier in the trajectory and documents that I shared earlier. But what this tool did for her was really began to help her take the reins on working forward with his trajectories. His language, the language is confident and clear, and it also acknowledges that he'll need help. So in this process, you see her move from when she filled out these tools, she was able to begin to see that future. So, and then in that conversation with her son, he became empowered. So he talks about his adult life where he wants to be a game designer, and he'd like to have time to spend with his friends. He's able to identify that he wants to live alone in adult life and eventually be married. He wants to connect to a spiritual life and have leisure activities by attending his church with family. He wants to attend comic conventions and events in his community. So again, he acknowledges that he wants to do it, but he understands that he's going to need help to get there. By asking specific and simple questions, it made it easier for the young man we met earlier to begin to advocate for the life he pictured. Mom and dad helped him communicate in words what he might need from his family. I will have my parents and siblings help me when I have questions about my finances. I will have control of how I live my own life. I would like for my family to always be willing to give me advice. And this one gives a great projection or vision into the ability of moving into a place of possibility, an opportunity to dream. This particular family was introduced to Charting the Life course when he was in 6th grade. And in this process, he began to utilize the tools. And they began with the vision tool, actually. And in doing this, it led to a conversation within the family of, if this is what we want, what do we need to be doing now in 6th grade? And it really helped move things forward for them and connect dots that ultimately led the family and the school team to an earlier transition plan because they had thought so far ahead and they were able to begin to talk about it sooner. So when you see here, you see things like, I found what I want. There is an English as a second language situation here, so you will see some differences in how it's expressed. But I found what I'd like to study. So he's hoping that in that moment, he will know what he likes to study in college for his career, that he will have learned to follow a routine and do his chores, that he's identified and knows what to do or who to call when a person tries to attack or bully me. All of things that can begin to develop a plan for a skill set in transition. And the school team recognized it and moved forward. They talked about things that might help him in his future, like having a support animal, or continuing to work with their pediatrician and with the USED. So it just gave them a great way to have a vision for how to get where they wanted to go. So we've talked about integrated supports in this space so far today too. And when we look at integrated supports across the life stages, I want you to think about how you access supports to meet your day-to-day needs. We're pretty creative at times in order to get our needs met while meeting the needs of others. We're busy people and we do a lot. So the Charting the Life Course Integrated Support Star is an easy way to look to quickly and easily frame our thinking as we attempt to achieve a long-term goal or even a short-term goal, how we problem solve, or how to think about ways to make our lives better. Think of it this way. This star gives us 5 ways to approach anything. And when we're using support conversations within education, we can use them to support a team, a teacher, or a student. Anyone, really. So again, this tool can be found at lifecoursetools.com. Go to Life Course Library and scroll down, and you'll see the integrated support star. When we have these 5 points of a star, beginning with personal strengths and assets, we can look at what we have to offer to move forward on setting a goal, solving a problem, or thinking about a way to make our lives better. And we always want to begin there. In addition, we can think about those people in our life, those relationships that we have or that we need to reach that goal, to solve that problem, or to make our life more directed towards the things we say we want. We can look at technology and how to support ourselves. And we can look at what's available in the community. And then lastly, we can look at eligibility. When we go deeper with the star, I think the easiest thing is to recognize that it's a tool that can be used in a multitude of situations, and having support to do the things we want to do is a driving force in self-determination. So remembering we don't have to have that piece of paper, we can be holding our hand up and remembering that we can just stop for a second in our moments where we're feeling challenged and go, okay, how am I utilizing my personal assets? What relationships am I utilizing, and do I need to create more? How can I increase my capacity by reaching and utilizing technology? What does everybody else in the community use? And then what am I eligible for? So as you think about this, as you move through each of these, and you're following that star framework, you'll always be increasing your capacity and recognizing new opportunities in order to access that which you want and need to have the life that you want to live. And again, the plethora of tools that are available through lifecoursetools.com allow us to continue to integrate these principles within each other. So when you look here on the opportunities for integration worksheet, you're going to see things like ways to think about daily life and employment for a student or for your family member, and what personal strengths and assets might be helpful. Volunteer experience, summer jobs, responsibilities at home, being able to communicate ideas and needs and thoughts to others, having good social skills, etc. So you'll see tools that allow you to look beyond the tool itself and begin to integrate them in a way that is very powerful. Looking at technology, looking at community-based. And we'll go deeper with some of these tools as we move deeper into these webinars. So what does this look like for students? So we had met this particular student a little while ago, and in that process, we had shared their story as they moved from Part C to Part B transition. This tool allows a young mom to tell her son's story, to show the work she's done to integrate and support them in the community, and to be sure that their story is told in the rooms that she is in discussing his future. She goes on to make sure that they understand all the things they've accessed, all the things he's exposed to, and things that they are able to do as a family in order to empower the team to continue use of such things in a way that will empower the whole team with mom moving forward, building her child's life. It can also be used in problem solving and to help us grow. This particular star was by the young man that was building or the family of the young man who was building a better routine. And in this space, they began to talk about other ways to communicate in the morning and build status in school, or build in their morning, to communicate their morning status to school as something they needed to move forward to. So this is a split star. It looks at what we have available to us now and what we want to move forward in the future. So they started to identify his strengths in the morning routine, or ways they can play to his strengths in a morning routine. And then they began to say, what do we need moving forward with that school team? Tips and tricks from the therapist, motivators, a behavior plan, etc. When you look at relationships, they talked about the relationships they have now and the connections they have now. And they talked about what might be helpful into their future. So again, problem solving and setting goals for the future to help us move forward. What electronics they access now and what they might look into in the future that they were learning about through their school team and community supporters. What's available to them now that they're utilizing in the community, and what they might want to tap into going into the future. And then again, parenting, what they're utilizing from eligibility and what they are moving into the future with and want to develop into the future. It can help you see what's missing. The words on this particular star are not nearly as important as looking at the star as a whole and seeing the gaps and seeing the statements that mom makes about the gaps. This is telling and great information as for anyone who's supporting them as they move forward, and how to have conversations to tap them into how they can utilize what everyone else is doing in the community and their life in the community, expand their life in the community, and how they might recognize something that's they're eligible for, or what they're utilizing already in the eligibility community that they might not understand that that's where it's coming from. And our friend again, who had mapped out his life in the community and his dreams to go to college, used this to map where he was right now, just looking at what they had right now and what they had access to and how he was building the life he had. And that was a great way for him to, again, and his family and his school team, to go, wow, you really are doing it. You're moving forward, you're growing your skills, and we can build on this to take you into the future that you say you want. And then we can take it beyond that, see what we have, and talk about identifying the next steps that might be useful in where we grow. So here we have an iPad, but we are not using it. So how do we impact that? How do we grow or look into things like waivers to increase our support? How do we talk about those that support us and add new people to our circle of support? How do we look at what we're doing right now in the community and enhance it by connecting to more things available in the community? How do we understand the systems that we're working with and help them work together and connect to new things that might help us? So again, it's a way to identify, and how to expand what we already have. So Charting a Life course can provide a great framework and encourage conversations. And what we hope you gain here from our time together is being encouraged to use those, the tools and the framework concepts, and encourage you to share them with families that you work with, people within your organization and school district and school building, so that we can see the power of these tools impacting families and students. It's that easy. Because what we're hoping is that you will find yourselves having new and rich conversations that are about encouraging a perspective that ignites a student's or a teacher or a team's or a family's passion to support students and families within your school or your district. We're hoping that you'll have new and rich conversations about information that makes everyone involved want to explore and learn more and share with others. We hope that you have information that creates a better understanding for all of why and how to use Charting a Life course to create and empower a vision of a more self-determined life. We're hoping that you'll have conversations that empower others to continue using it to support a student across time. And lastly, we hope that it continues and encourages conversations about the impact of what has been done that's empowered everyone to work in new ways to ensure that the student can see the road to that life that they expressed and that wanted. Always remember that while typically developing children have everyday experiences that help them get ready for their future, children with disabilities have fewer chances to practice those skills. Families need to be intentional about planning for their child's future and in that planning include dreaming broadly about possibility. You're connecting families to Charting a Life course, you encouraging a team to utilize this framework and tools, you being curious about utilize them in your own life is going to grow the power of these tools and this framework within Ohio. It's going to encourage new outcomes for students and families, and ultimately the individuals and students that you know now are going to grow to have lives with great vision and self-determination, independence and interdependence in a way that is meaningful and helps them live their good life, that life they want to live. We really appreciate and thank you for coming today. And we hope that you'll continue to utilize these webinars in the future to grow your understanding and just go a little bit deeper with the concepts and the tools in a way that will help you learn more and be courageous and try this work within your role and within your school and within your district. Thanks again for attending.